I solemnly swear that I will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Yeah, hi folks, Ronnie here from The Truth About Addiction. Today we have a very special guest on for our first ever podcast that's going to go in public. It's Mr. Rick Grossman. I've known Rick for a lot of years, and he's got a wonderful story to tell. Thank you, guys.
Hey, mate.
Hey, buddy. How are you, mate?
Even if it's on a screen, it's always great to see you.
No, same, brother.
Well, I've known you since 1987.
Wow, yeah. It's a while.
And, I was in a hospital back then, detox unit. And back then there were no iPhones.
Yeah.
It was my first experience in a hospital, in a detox. I burnt my life down, and you and a good mate of ours, an old mate of ours, Maxie, approached me.
I was talking to you the other day.
Right. And you were very, very kind to me and gave me your numbers. And I went home after 10 days and I had I had all these phone numbers written on bits of paper. And I got home and I thought, this is going to be great. Total abstinence. I'd never thought about total abstinence, but this is going to be great. And there's, a lot of people to help me, meet up with people, and this is going to be terrific. And 2 days I lasted. And I woke up and I had that thing that we all know about, that compulsion. Yeah. And I sat there on the end of my bed and I thought, oh, yeah. Oh, no, at first I thought, why am I feeling like this? I shouldn't be feeling like this after being, in a hospital for 10 days. I should, but I had that compulsion. And I pulled out all my phone numbers, yours being one of them, all the NA, 12-step 12-step phone numbers that I got. And then I got my dealer's phone number. And I thought, why would I want to ring any of these people up?
Yeah.
And mate, that in itself, that little thing, of learning that I have to take responsibility for myself, took me 3 years of going to hospitals and rehabs, and before I realised that I actually have to be the one to actually do this. It's not going to be kind of taken away. Someone's going to fix it for me. I actually had to do it myself.
Yep. You only put in what you get out.
Yeah, I wasn't very good at taking responsibility for myself, but I was in I walked away from a career that I absolutely loved and broke my heart. I listened to your story the other day, and our stories are very, very different, our upbringings, but same end.
Yes.
It's very interesting, I was in this rehab and, I come from a middle-class family. There was no violence in my family. It was silent. It was always silent. I never heard my parents argue, and then one day my dad was gone. And when I say that, I still get a feeling,
yeah, of course.
And my sister grew up in the same. She's not an addict, but it was the way I handled that trauma that made me different to her. I handled it in here. I withdrew into here, started living in fantasy, did not want to be in that family, did not want to be in that house. I fantasized about having brothers. I fantasized about being somewhere else. And it's interesting, it was a comfortable family and it was a comfortable home. When I went to rehab years later, there was a bloke in rehab who came from a completely different upbringing to me, a guy called Rex. And Rex was a guy who used to look after the trannies and the hookers around Darlinghurst in the 80s. He used to sit there and make sure no one messed around with them. And he was he was pretty rough character, and both of us just bonded. It was fantastic, So I think that's really interesting that, some of my friends, you include, and Maxie, very, very different backgrounds to what I had, but there's still this sort of, you can relate, can actually relate to one another. And you know, I mean, I was listening to you speak, and some of your, you know, incredible moments that you had when you were younger, and you know, I was thinking about that. What were big moments for me? And I remember I used to buy dope off this woman in Redfern, and the guy I was playing with in the Divinyls, our drummer, he was my partner in crime, and he was the only person I knew who had a car. And I'd go and stand on the corner of Cleveland Street and South Dowling, and he'd come along in his VW and pick me up. We'd go up to the Redfern Mall, and we had to walk up and down in the supermarket and buy dope off this woman. Right? So, who was actually a friend of probably some people you knew, like, but she was kind of Nettie Smith.
Yeah.
I didn't know that then. But one day I'm waiting to be picked up, and I'm standing there and I've got some fits in my pocket, and these two blokes approached me, young guys, and they said, "Can we talk to you?" And come around the corner, and they were both cops. I would not have picked them for cops in a million years. And they said, been a lot of break and enters here. We've been watching you. It looks like you're kind of casing a house. I said, no, I'm waiting to be picked up by a friend. And one of them leans over and pulls out a fit out of my pocket. He said, you got any dope on you? And I said, no. I said, I'm going to get some. He said, where are you going? I said, Bondi Hotel. He said, of course you don't know the bloke who's selling it to you. And I said, no, I don't.
Mm.
They put the fit back in my pocket and they started to talk to one another as if I wasn't there. And one of them goes, you recognise this bloke? The other guy goes, no. He says, he plays in a band. I go and see this bloke play. Plays in the Divinyls. I'm like standing there going, oh. And in the background I see my friend drive past, you know. I'm like, oh, fuck. And they start having a conversation about me. Then this bloke turns to me and he goes, mate, you're a fucking idiot. He said, you've got all this you've got this great opportunity in your life. Now you should be really grateful for what you've got, and look what you're fucking doing. Fuck off, I don't want to look at you.
Wow.
And I mean, half an hour later I was all right without a shot.
Yeah, right.
Mate, I just felt, you know, there were quite a lot of those sort of moments, but I always remember that one. And the way the guys just said, fuck off.
Yeah.
It was just bad. It was bad.
Dismissive. Bye.
The other one, no, it was funny, mate. You know, when I first met you, you know, and when you were around back then, all the detox units in hospitals in Sydney were all very 12-step based.
Yeah.
And I went to Langton Clinic a few times, and there was a woman there called Judy, and Judy looked like Dame Edna, and Judy would just see through your shit. You know? And I did this H&I the other day at a place called The Retreat, and it's very beautiful and very nice, and everyone's very polite, and all the counsellors are very polite. You know, and I was telling them that, you know, I was in Langton Clinic. It's mixed ward. You know, you're on these plastic sheets on these beds. And I'd gone in there and I was stuffed. I was, you know, the old men's pajamas, and I'm sweating and I'm vomiting, you know, and all that stuff. And I'm lying on the bed, and there's the Langton Tuesday night meeting downstairs. Big, you know, Darlinghurst, everyone's in black. Yeah. Everyone knows each other, you know. And she said to me, you're going to the meeting. So I was lying on this bed, and she comes up and she says, you're going to the meeting. And I said, I'm too sick. She said, well, pack your bag and fuck off then.
Yeah, she was
And so she almost grabbed me by the ear, mate, and led me downstairs through this big meeting. Everyone's dressed up, and I'm in these, you know, these old men going to maybe sit in the front. You know, and, mate, a lot of people got clean back then. Yep. She would confront you about your selfish behaviour. And that's what addiction is, mate. It's a selfish fucking thing, you know.
Yeah, mate. She's famous, Judy. She was good. I like Judy.
I love Judy. She, you know, when I think about love, I found these photos a little while ago, and when I first got my career back, I got clean and got my career back and got in the Hoodoo Gurus, and we went overseas, and I was doing outpatients groups with Judy and a few people you would know in the group, and back then there were no mobile phones, right? So you'd go out on tour, and you'd be in America, and you'd be like, months, or, going from city to city, and they bring the mail out to you. So my family or whatever would send me a letter, and they'd send it to the record company in New York, and someone from the record company would come out on the road with a couple of days, and they'd bring the mail.
Cool.
I get this letter. In the letter, there's a bunch of photos, and it's my outpatients group. And they're all standing around a bed in Langton Clinic, and Judy is lying in the bed. And it's got a sign above the bed that says, "Rick slept here." And it says, "Stay out of your head."
Yeah, nice. Yeah, cool.
How beautiful is that people would do that for you, Amazing thing. And that's what I found, like you, I always thought I was just up against it on my own. And then you find out that there are people around who, they don't want anything from you. They just, they're kind, and they're helping you. And I remember, when I was in that clinic, and I'd met you, and I'd met Derek and Mario and all those people, and I used to think, what do these people want?
Yeah.
Why are they coming around my house? Why are they ringing me? Amazing.
It's funny disease. We have nothing. We think that somebody wants something from us. Because when I got clean originally, I had nothing, and I used to think they're up to something. They want something from me. And they'd remember my name, and I'd go like, "Whoa, okay, is he an undercover cop?" This crazy stuff that was going through my brain.
It's it's an incredible thing, addiction. It's I'm fascinated by it. And I hear people speak about addiction, and people will say, "Oh, I don't have a drug problem, or I have a living problem," and I understand that. I get it, But if I don't stay on the path that I'm on, I will have a drug problem again.
Exactly. All roads lead to hell. All roads.
And isn't it funny? I never really thought about what sort of person I was.
Yeah.
And, I wouldn't mind just talking about some early stuff with you, if you
please,
because when I was a kid, I felt quite invisible, and I felt like everyone had sort of got a manual, and I didn't.
Yeah.
And I went to Sydney Boys High, and I went to good, and I certainly wasn't a loner at school. I had friends and stuff, but I just felt like just a little bit different, There was something, it was like there was a barrier between me and other people, and everyone else seemed to have it together socially, and I used to, when my dad left, I'd live in this fantasy, and that I was in a different family, and then I became obsessed with footy players, and I have photos of all the South Sydney footy players in my room, and then I started getting into music, and it became musicians, and I went and saw Led Zeppelin.
You're right.
1972, and it was. I've had a few what you might call spiritual, awakenings or whatever in my life, or happenings. But I went to that show, and I was watching them play, and I thought, those blokes in that band don't have a problem in the world. They've got so many people admiring them and looking up to them, and so one of them is in 12-step recovery now.
Yep.
One of them died. One of them lost one of their kids. I mean,
Yeah.
really, it's but it's an illusion. The fame thing, and I thought if I could just get enough of that, feel all right.
Yeah, all will be well.
And and I found out that I was actually good at playing, and so I did get some success, not so much financial, but a lot, success. And the more success I get, the more dope I would use.
Yep.
Because nothing filled me up, mate. And I used to wonder how people lived a normal life and were happy with that. I mean, you were talking about that in your thing. That you got to have this stuff happen all the time. And I heard a great saying a little while ago. That recovery makes the ordinary extraordinary.
I believe that. Yeah.
Great saying. And I used to think, how do you go out and go to the beach, or how do you have a meal with friends, or how do you go to the movies and be happy with doing that?
Yeah.
I mean, I could do it if I had some dough.
If I fell asleep during the movie, yeah, nodded off. I've never seen the end of a movie.
It was weird. And now, I think, well, like I have some friends who, a couple of people who are kind of struggling with addiction problems, and try to explain to them, if it had anything to do with rational thinking, addiction, everyone would get clean, because everyone would go, oh,
yeah.
Well, I overdosed yesterday, I better not do that again. It's just nuts. I used to walk around to where I bought drugs thinking, I shouldn't be doing this.
Yep.
It's a very powerful thing, and every day, I'm sure you're the same, every day, mate, I wake up in the morning and I'm grateful that I don't have that thing anymore,
Yeah, I use the word blessed.
Oh,
I am so blessed to wake up and not want to get on. Oh, man, what a freedom.
Oh, I had we can talk about this, if you like. When people talk about moments of clarity, and in 1987, I was in a bad way. I tried to stop using through different things. I tried sitting in a church, and I tried, reading self-help books, and walk around with Carl Gabram's The Prophet under my arm, and tried getting fit, and I tried being a vegetarian. What happens when you do that? You become a kind of a fit vegetarian junkie.
Yeah.
And nothing stopped me. And a friend of yours, probably Hamish, he
Yes.
used to say it's like having a balloon full of water, and it gets a hole in it, and you put your hand up to stop the leak, and then there's another hole, and then another one, and you're trying to keep everything going. And I was playing in the band, and we were playing a lot, and it became just survival. It was just, if I could just get enough dope just to feel normal, so I could communicate with people and do my job. People used to say to me, well, they still do, they say, oh, you must have been off your head when you were playing back then. And never. I could not physically have done it. And so, but the last couple of years, or the last year, I would use just a tiny bit just to feel okay, So we had been playing. We were on this tour, and, I was kind of just trying to keep everything going, and I'd run out and got really sick. And we're playing up in Brisbane, and flew up to Brisbane, and it's amazing what you can do, when you're like the stuff you can actually get together when you're desperate. And I was up in Brisbane, and I manipulated this whole thing where I got someone to go around to the guy I was buying drugs off. He was a Maltese guy, and he'd always give me credit. He used to say, "Rick, I know you always pay me, mate."
Mm-hmm.
And I got this friend of mine to go and get this stuff and put it in a cassette and give it to one of our management who was coming up to Brisbane. And he didn't know what, and I rang him and I said, "I really need this cassette." So he came up to Brisbane, and we were just leaving for this gig. And I was sick. And he gave me this cassette. And we go out to this big suburban pub in Brisbane. And it's like 2,000 people jammed into this pub. There's no OH&S then, so it's all like, I'm trying to find somewhere to have a shot. I'm running around in the bowels of this pub. I find this toilet, and I had this shot. All of a sudden, I was just like, I felt so good. And I just had like 3 days of absolute misery, I'm like, oh, it wasn't that bad. Everything's good, and I get up on stage and start playing, and felt great, and the lights and the everything's great. The crowd's great. And I look down, there's a trickle of blood coming out of my arm.
I remember hearing that. Yeah, I remember hearing that before. Yeah.
Oh, mate, killed me. Absolutely killed me. And I just broke my heart, because when I was a kid, all I wanted to do was to be part of something and be part of a gang, a band, on the road in a band. And that's, music's changed a bit now. People nowadays, because I teach, and a lot of them are out for the, just individual. But when I was growing up, it was about being part of something, being, a gang. And the Divinyls were definitely a gang.
Yeah. Great band. One of the few bands that I went and seen, because I wasn't big, because I was, full-blown addiction, but I went and seen you guys in that little theatre in the city of Sydney. The State Theatre?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I went and seen you there. God, it was out of control. I was using. It was gone. Yeah, crazy, mate. Crazy days.
It was great. I had many, many good years, of fun years of using, then it was funny because of playing in bands, it would take me away from Sydney, and in the early 80s, heroin, as you know, was everywhere.
Yep.
And I was living in a house with a couple of people who probably would have met just probably before me. But what would happen back then was I would go away, and we're all like using a bit casually, my friend Danny always says, I just had to get off heroin. I just take acid, take speed, smoke pot, just like a normal person.
Yeah, just like a normal person, yeah.
And I'd go away for, a few months at a time. Then I'd come back to Sydney and someone's dead. Someone's gone to jail. Someone's disappeared.
Yeah.
And it just started to get, everything started to break up and it just started to get bad. And it was, when I first started to get into recovery, I met there were 3 of my old friends who I had no idea where they were, and there they were.
Yeah, right.
It was great. But many fun times doing it, and unfortunately, I say talk to when we at school when I'm working. We go through. We do a historical thing. We look at different musical movements, and they're all drug fueled, right? So, like in the 50s, there was speed, and the 60s is acid and pot, and then there's the heroin, and then there's cocaine in the 70s, and we talk about that. And I said the trouble is, it promises a lot, but it always ends in tears.
Yep.
Always ends in tears.
My saying is, it promised me the world, and it gave me an atlas. It gave me a piece of paper, Right. Yeah. It's the biggest lying disease that I've ever seen. It's just such a liar. Oh. That's why I don't listen to my head.
Well,
That's why I have a spiritual advisor. That's why I have friends that I can run stuff past, because my thinking is what got me into trouble.
absolutely.
My
100%.
thinking that I could control it first. Then when I realised I couldn't control it, I thought I could handle it.
Mm.
Then I realised I couldn't handle it. Then I thought I could put up with it.
Mm.
Then when I found out I couldn't put up with it, I was in trouble.
Mm.
That's when I thought about killing myself.
Mm. Mm.
So the only once in my whole life I thought about killing myself. I thought, this is it. I can't get clean and I can't keep using. There's no way out. Because the pain of using was so bad. I remember when you said about Langton Clinic, that was my last detox. I come off 120 ml a dome, cold turkey. And Judy and Eloise was working there. Remember the nurse, the beautiful lady who passed away? Yeah. But she came to me and she was really upset. She was like, how did you relapse? What happened? And I told her, I said, I just stopped going, doing things I'm supposed to do. I stopped talking to people. I stopped being involved. And she was like shocked because, I'd been clean for nearly 3 years and I relapsed. And, yeah, man, I wore all the skin off my sides rolling around on that plastic bed. And I rang Mario and I said to him, I'm getting out of here. I've had a gutful. I can't do this. I remember it like it was yesterday. It's 36.5 years ago. I said, all they're doing is talking about using. And I didn't know about the word trigger those days. I said, and it makes me want to use. And he said, do you really want to use? And I said, no. He said, well, go and have a bath and ring me back. And I went and had a hot bath and I came back and he said, how are you? And I said, yeah, I'm okay. What's going on? I just needed time out. I needed time away and to let myself settle and not be so full of my own madness. Yeah. Go and have a bath. He said to me for the last 36 years, I'll ring him up sometimes. He'll say, have you eaten? And I'll say no. He'll say, well, go and eat, then ring me back.
Yeah.
And when I come back, the problem's halved.
Yeah.
It's just such a wonderful, wonderful thing that we have. We've been given this gift. And, you're helping people all the time. I know you are. We don't see each other often, but I know we have a connection. You and I have always had a connection. I didn't know who you were when I said, hello, how are you? My name's Ron. I didn't know. It doesn't matter to me who people are.
But you know what? Judy said to me, she said, what you do is not who you are. And when I came in, that was my comfort zone, what I did. That's who I was. I'm in the Divinyls, Now I'm not, I'm a person who happens to be able to do that. And I do that quite well. But that's all good, but no,
I was in the Waterside Workers Union. That didn't make me, that's not who I am today. That's not who I am today. I could choose to do that, but I choose not to. It's so nice, isn't it, having a choice?
Oh, I go out to Parklea a bit and different prisons. And I'm actually just waiting for my new clearance to come through. But it's funny, one of the last times I was out there before COVID, just before COVID, did a talk out there, and this bloke says to me, he was great. He says, "Yeah, really liked your talk, mate. But you know what? I love drugs."
Yeah.
It's the whole point, Like, when I first came to meetings, I looked at people and I thought, I like drugs a bit more than everyone else here. Everyone else has found a way to stop. And the concept of stopping something that you really want to do, that your head's telling you, it was an alien concept. And Judy, actually, again, she said to me one day, she used to call me Richard. And she'd say, Richard, now, let me explain something to you. She said, when you see somebody going to the laundromat, it doesn't necessarily mean that they feel like going to the laundromat. And that was profound for me.
Yeah.
Because I used to run my life on how I felt. I'd make major life decisions on how I felt. Then 2 days later, I'd be going, what did I do that for? This the talk, the chatter, this is a great thing. You've talked about it, and about the silent, the stilling, the quietening down of this thing, that is malcontent. It's just just awful. And I got clean for 15 months at the beginning and got everything back. well, I mean, everything. I got my career back. I'd never been in a proper relationship. I'd never had my name on a lease. I never owned a car. I had all this stuff. I had some self-esteem. And, of course, what did I do? I put other things ahead of my recovery. And these are the ideas I get when I'm left to my own devices, right? And I was going overseas to work, and I got this idea. I thought, why don't I get a bit of dope for the plane? No one will know. And I did. They're the sort of good ideas I come up with on my
own. Yeah. That's why we can't be left alone.
Well, you know, and it's a funny thing, isn't it? You know, the recovery thing, it's like you have to kind of depend on something, but then you're set free.
Yeah. I try to tell people today, you know, because I do a lot of one-on-one stuff, you know, you've only got to give one thing up to gain everything.
Yeah.
And if you pick that one thing up, you lose everything.
That's right.
I said, it's that simple. It's really that simple.
Yes.
And you've only got to do it just for the day.
Yeah. You
know, every philosophy talks about today. Yesterday's history, tomorrow's a mystery. All we have is today. That's why we call it the present. You know, and that's the biggest thing we have. We have the present. You know, we have the gift of now. And right now, everything's fine. And right now, I'm safe. So I don't have to be concerned about. And a lot of the stuff that our brain told us anyway were lies. They're unfounded fears.
That's right.
I like what Osher says. You know, he used to say, your future is an exaggerated imagination. Your past is a vivid memory, and none of them are true. You know, a distorted memory, I should say, a distorted memory and a distorted imagination. He said, because, you know, none of it's real. He said, all we have is right now. That's and since I learned to live that way, wow, what a freedom. Freedom from self. That was what I wanted. That's why I used drugs.
That's right. Well, you're always... You know, that's all I ever wanted was just to feel okay in myself.
Yeah.
That's all I ever wanted, you know. And you start searching for it and you find it. I mean, it was funny. I think you were saying, you know, the first on the thing I listened to the other day of you talking about the first time you had. I think maybe it wasn't heroin. It was something else.
Like Actal.
Yeah. And the first time I had heroin, I smoked it, 1975. People who were older than me, and they gave it to me, and I'd never felt that free. And, you know, a doctor, there's a guy in who I know who's been in recovery for a long time, who's a doctor, and he said to me that heroin, you know, is morphine, basically. Yep. And morphine was developed for soldiers. And, you know, when someone has had their legs blown off in a field somewhere, they give them morphine. He said it's not actually an anesthetic. What it does is it removes fear.
Yep.
And that really made sense to me, because that's what it did to me for quite a long time. It just removed my fear, you know. It was,
yep.
Yeah. And I guess probably chased that for a long time. It stopped working like that for me, but I chased after it for a long time.
That's the saddest part of it. It did stop working, and then we go through a mourning period, and that's when we relapse. That's when a lot of people relapse. We go through a mourning period, and they think, oh, I shouldn't be mourning this because it's so bad. Of course we should be. We're in a relationship with it. We devoted our whole life to it. Of course you're going to go through a mourning period.
Yeah.
If you don't mourn, it means you didn't love it.
Yeah.
Now, when my mum passed away, I mourned.
Yeah.
When I stopped using, I mourned.
Yeah.
You know, there was periods where I mourned. But the nice part is today, my brain has been clear so long now that I know right from wrong. I see as clear as day. You know, I know that I'm one shot away from being a junkie.
Mm-hmm.
You know, 36 and a half years since I've used. One shot, I'm back to where I was, or actually worse. I believe it's a progressive disease. I do.
Yeah.
I believe that from my experience from relapse, that it got worse every time I went back. But I also believe that we don't have to ever use again. I believe that in my whole heart, if we follow a simple program.
Well, I never want to, maybe at a time, I never want to.
Yeah.
why I do that. People say, "What? How come you're still vigilant?" After
Yes.
I'm just coming up for 32 years, and I never ever I never want to forget,
Yeah.
and I never want to go back there. You just reminded me my dad passed away in 1980, and it was very sudden, and I went to his funeral and I couldn't cry.
Oh, mate, you just took one out of me. That's my story as well. I went to my mother's funeral, couldn't cry. Before I picked up heroin, I was so detached.
Yeah.
And I looked around at everybody crying. I felt so bad. I tried to force myself. I tried to pretend to cry.
Yep.
It was fucking horrific, mate. It was horrific. I still remember it today. My mum died when I was 19, so that's more than I can count. 38 years ago.
But, years later, I'm at home. It was like 6 years later, and I'm using full on habit. And I've got these friends who who are bringing stuff in, and I used to hate when I wanted to go and school. I want to go around there. I hated waiting for someone. They say, "Oh, we'll be there in half an hour." It's like
that.
Why are you going to be here in half an hour? I waited for maybe 4 or 5 hours for them to come. Sitting by the window watching the traffic. And they arrived, and I was so, I was sick, and I got this stuff and ran into the bathroom and dropped it in the toilet.
Oh, no.
Mate, I cried my eyes out then.
Yeah.
Cried. Oh. It was just so terrible. So terrible.
It's unbelievable. It is. It's unbelievable the power this thing has. So you've been doing a fair bit of recovery stuff with other people too, I believe. Doing some work in rehab or something?
Yeah. Well. When the band, the end of the 90s, we stopped playing, and for about 6 years.
Yep.
And I played with other people and did other music stuff, but I started going to Who's, Des and Derek and ARIA Who's. They give me some work, and then they started to train me. So I did training there, and then worked there for a couple of years. Then I went to Royal North Shore to Herbert Street.
Yep.
Worked there for a while, and the Phoenix unit at Manly Hospital. I worked there, and I loved it. And then the band got back together.
Yeah, right.
So I remember this. It was a profound moment when I was about a year clean, and I'd always I love playing music.
Yeah,
I love it, and I do it for a different reason nowadays. It's not a solution. I do it because I love doing it. I love original songs. I love the band. Feeling of playing in the band. It's such a good band, but early on, I thought that it would be a solution. It would fix me somehow. And so when I was about a year clean, Derek takes me into Long Bay Jail. First time I'd gone in there. And the night before, or 2 nights before, we had done this show, big gig at the Entertainment Centre in Sydney. Great night, terrific night, Now I go into Long Bay Jail, and I'm walking out of the prison with Derek, and I've got this feeling. It's like this warm, fulfilling, and I'm thinking, this is what I wanted the band to do for me.
The gratitude.
And I was kind of disappointed. I was like, oh, this is where it is, not playing in the rock band. It's doing this stuff.
Yeah.
That's why I do it, mate. And, Judy, again, she said to me, Mother Teresa, she said, there's no such a thing as a totally selfless person. Mother Teresa did all that stuff because it made her feel good. And it makes me feel good doing that stuff.
I have a painting of Mother Teresa on my wall in the office. A friend of mine painted it for me in prison.
Right. Well, there's a pretty good documentary about her out at the moment.
Yeah.
But,
Mate, we all do something because it makes us feel better. I use drugs because it made me feel better. I work with people in recovery because it makes me feel better. If it made me feel better, I wouldn't be doing it. I'm not a masochist.
No.
I'm still an addict. I still have those desires to make myself feel good. I just know that it has to come from the inside, not the outside anymore.
That's right.
I had all the cars and the boats and the houses and all that bullshit. I was laying in bed at 16 years clean, wishing that I wouldn't wake up the next morning.
Yeah.
Then I went back to prison 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And I reassessed my whole life. And I studied myself. Because I had to study myself before I could work somebody else out.
Yeah.
It's like everything. You can't love somebody till you love yourself.
Of course. Yeah.
So I had plenty of time. I had 8 years in solitary confinement. I was in maximum security prison, so I didn't get to farms and all that stuff. And all I did was help other people and study my own disease and my thinking patterns. And what was so bad about Ron that I needed to change the way I felt by external things. Everything was external with me. If you remember my company, my number plate used to be next. Everything was next. My number plate's denial now. But, everything was about the outside, and I realised it was an inside job.
Yeah, that's right.
And I was inside prison when I worked that out. That's the ironic part of this whole thing, that it was an inside job, and I was inside prison, and I stayed clean. No one we know has stayed clean after serving such a long sentence of prison. I have. Why? Because I'm better than everybody else? No. Because I worked a program and I helped other people. I believe you can only keep what you got by giving it away. I really mean that with my whole heart. The secret to success is the more I give away. See, they say money can't make you happy. It can if you give it away. Because the happiness comes in the giving. And that's what I believe about money. They say money can't make you happy. Well, it can, If I give some money to someone homeless on the street, I walk away feeling better. It's a funny thing, So we've learnt now that the disease or the disruption, the craziness on the inside has to be fixed from the inside, not the outside. It's like trying to panel beat a car when the motor's blowing up. It's still not going to work. No matter how pretty the car is, if the motor's no good, the car's not going to go. So I realised that we had to get into the motor and fix the motor up. That was my thinking and my belief systems. The hardest thing for me, Rick, was unlearning. We're intelligent human beings. We learn quickly. But Jesus Christ, I was a slow unlearner. Unlearning that didn't work. Unlearning that material things aren't going to change the way I feel. If I was with that girl, it'd be better. If I was driving that car, it'd be better. All that stuff was rubbish. It was if I give something, I feel better. It's such a beautiful gift to be able to give. And now I have something to give.
But don't you think it's an incredible thing that, you're not the person you were when you walked in, right?
No way. Oh, my God. Thank God for that.
And, I never thought about other people. I kind of did, but I'm not in a, if you could do something for me, or how would it benefit me by hanging out with you, or, and now, if I go out to the prison, you go out to the prisons and you get to know people, if they're doing a long, fairly long sentence, and you get to know them over the years, and all of a sudden you see them at a meeting.
It's nice.
You see them outside. And
nice.
You get this great feeling. It's fabulous. It really is fabulous.
I say to some people that look after it, they say, how are we ever going to pay you? We pay you. And I say, by ringing me up and saying, I've met this really beautiful girl and we're getting engaged. Oh, we're having a child. Oh, we've bought a house. I said, that's my reward. They don't get it, but they will get it. They will get it eventually.
Yeah,
it takes time. It's a very slow process, but I believe we're the blessed. I believe we're the lucky ones. I wanted to have you on my first show because I think that you've been such an inspiration to so many people in so many ways. To me, you've always been a gentleman. You've always been passionate, and I really love that about you. You've been respectful. And these are human traits that, you don't say about drug addicts. These are traits that, that you have in you and that you had in you from the time I met you. When you first walked in, when I first ever seen you, this is what I picked up from you. I didn't pick up lying, thief and junkie. I picked up a guy that was loving, respectful, had a good heart. And I have a Buddhist, used to be my Lama, and he went on to went back to Tibet, and he smacked me across the face one day. And I was out on bail, charged with my charges. And he said to me, "You don't believe in God, do you? You don't believe in religion, do you, Ron?" I said, "No, I don't." And he went, whack, really hard. And I looked at him, he looked right in my eyes, and he started laughing. He went, little Tibetan man. He goes, "When you have a good heart, you don't need religion."
Wow.
And it was a lesson. It was like a really nice, not many people smack me in the face. And he smacked me right across the face and just went, his little giggle. And he looked at my eyes the whole time. And he said, "When you have a good heart, you don't need religion." I thought, yeah, okay, I like that. And that's been with me. That was while I was on bail, 20 years ago, well, before I went back to prison. And yeah, man, this has been a blessing. I really, really appreciate you coming. I know you've got heaps to do, and I know you're a very busy man, but this has been an honour to see you, Rick, and it's been really, really nice for you to help share your experience, strength, and hope with me and the people that are out there in this thing.
I want to tell you one little story just quickly.
Yep.
That I love this, and years ago when I was 5 years sober and clean, and my ex, who I think the two sisters, Louise and Marcia.
Yes.
Louise passed away. She'd gone in to have a child and had a brain hemorrhage. And I'd never felt so much pain. We're all really close. We all lived in Bondi. We all had kids, little kids, and it was so tragic. And there was a lot of talk about I'm being looked after, and I'm this and that, and all that. And I was somewhere, and this woman came up to me and said, "Maybe it's God's will." Now I wanted to hit her with a bottle.
Yeah.
I'm going, this does not make sense. All this talk about higher powers and God, and it doesn't make sense. But I saw this old bloke who was those old blokes who used to be around, and they all had these funny names,
Campsy Mick and Broken Hill Bill and
Serenity Frank, and I went up and I didn't, and they were all pretty sort of, Aussie blokes and pretty gruff, And I went up and said, "Oh, this has happened and that's happened, and This bloke looked at me and he said, "Did you drink?" And it shocked me. I went, "No." And he said, "Did you think about drinking?" And I said, "No." He said, "Well, that's what it's all about, son."
Yeah,
it is on the head, And it was a great thing, It was a very simple thing, to get through things in life, good and bad. But you need, I'm not religious, but I certainly believe in the spiritual side of the program. And this bloke said to me, it's like spirituality is like a flame that you have in your heart. And that flame makes you love your kids, enjoy a great meal, enjoy your friends, go to the beach, feel the sun on you, all that great stuff that human beings have. He said addiction gets rid of that. And
exactly.
It made sense to me when he said that to me, because whenever I try and stop using without a program, I reckon I used to feel worse.
100%.
Without the drugs.
Yep. That's why we have to have something in our lives to fill the void. Because there is a mourning period and there is a lot of fear. And the only thing that replaces fear is faith. And if you're not a religious person, you've got to find something greater than yourself.
Yeah, that's right.
Which to me was the program and the people. And now, I've been going, I've been around this program, this bloody recovery program for now 41 years. And, I've had the same spiritual advisor for 36 and a half years. I've only ever had the one spiritual advisor, and I spoke to him today. We speak to each other. We don't talk about, he actually called me today to talk about his problems.
All right.
He's got some problems going on in his life. So he rang me today to talk about his problems because we're mates. It's not like he's not up here and I'm down here. We're here. We're peers. We're mates, and that's what I love about, there's a big equaliser with us. We have, I actually think it's very much like being at war with somebody. We've been through the same war. We've been through the same trenches. And we get this bond, this incredible bond, because we know who the enemy is. and we know what we have to do to defeat the enemy, and we have to stand side by side to get through it. Because alone we can't, you know. Together we can, and I think that's the bond that we have that's unbreakable. And the minute you let go of that bond is when you're in trouble. I really do. I believe once you let go of this bond that we hold hands and we fight this fight together, we're okay. You know, they say, you know, if you hang out the edges, the wolves will pick you off. Rick Grossman, you're a gentleman.
Oh,
Thank
mate.
you very much for coming and sharing your life with our life.
Oh,
And we'll do another one.
pleasure, mate.
All right, mate. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
I solemnly swear that I will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.